So this is the second diagnosis of Fleet Street of Thursday, the 27th of August 2020. As it is the diagnosis, we are not necessarily referring to the headlines in the papers, but we are looking at the background and the contents of the actual disease that afflicts Fleet Street, the British papers, and the lies they tell and the fakery they perpetrate. So what is happening here is a line just after the Daily Mail itself paraded Boris Johnson doing a glamping at a location in Scotland. They're saying that Scotland is broke, and they're saying that Scots enjoy £1,600 more per head of UK tax cash. Now it's a treble-barreled kind of lie, and it's the tax break. Now, if it were true, then there would be no poor people or poverty in England if the amount of money that they're distributing on average among the numbers of people. Of course, millions of English people or people in England are broke, and they are broke as a result of the corruption and the looting by big business, hedge funders, and offshore billionaires who don't share the goodies with the ordinary people whom they keep in poverty perpetually. And so this is the lie. So the point I made earlier when they were doing the actual expose of Johnson in a tent, bogus tent in Scotland, that they were not opposing him and his policies. They were kind of tickling. They're tickling at him, but not really opposing, let alone exposing the lies and wrongs in his agenda and his policies. So that has to be remembered. When the papers are the Daily Mail, the Sun, and the rest of the Fleet Street papers appear to be having a go at Johnson and mocking him, that is not the same as the vicious, poisonous, and very calculated targeting of Corbyn, with the clear aim of demonizing Corbyn as the most fearsome enemy of the people, whereas Corbyn is not an enemy of the people. In fact, the opposite. And we say that Corbyn is not even intellectually capable of understanding the attacks at the time. And Corbyn has failed to hold any position whatsoever against employees in the local councils to be held accountable to the people in the borough concerned and in the communities of the councils concerned. So Corbyn is an empty shell in terms of the toughness and the solidity and the substance of his kind of image as compared to the reality. And the reality is that he's a shell. And he is therefore deserving of the level that I have given him as the garden gnome. He is hardly there. Whereas Boris Johnson is regularly being featured in the papers in Fleet Street as a failure, as somebody who is doing too many U-turns and all the rest of it. But there is nothing sinister about his image as far as painted by the Fleet Street Daily Mail, the Sun, the Star, the Express, and the Boris Graph, the Daily Boris Graph. There is nothing sinister, although he is doing the most sinister things, but he is being painted as being harmless. Whereas Corbyn has been painted as sinister while he was trying to say the most basic common sense things. So that is the real illness and sickness of the British press, the British mainstream media. And that sickness afflicts every single person whose rights are being violated by the local councils, by the regional authorities, and by the UK government departments and government disservice. And what we are having to distinguish in this diagnosis is the myth that the British press tells the truth, that the British press is critical of the government, that the British press is fearless. The British press is not like any other country or nation state's press, that it is really uncowed when faced with the government. That is absolute pack of lies, because the British press only jokes, fakes, fabricates, and leaves the reality of the corruption and the crime and the criminality of the government and the regime alone, aside, uncovered, unexplored, unexamined. Absolutely the only time the British press comes alive is when it comes to the BBC or any public service kind of effort like the NHS bureaucracy. And the Daily Mail is leading. The Daily Mail is leading the chorus for the racists. Rule Britannia. And this is the time when they come to life, or when they find a lone, as they call it, jihadist or terrorist. And no jihadist or terrorist has been found ever, anywhere, to have been trained, let alone supported, let alone been known about by ordinary Muslims in this country. And yet the suggestion is that the jihadis are Muslims. They are not. The jihadis are strategically created instruments, tools of war created by the state and state-related people, whoever they are. And the only reason why they choose a particular religious group as a label is because at the time, the brainwashed masses are more likely to associate the two and find it plausible that Muslims are likely to have more antagonism to the British society than anybody else. Absolute lies. Muslims or non-Muslims or people from other religious faiths, those who immigrated or migrated to the UK, have only ever done that to avoid, to escape, to flee poverty and hunger and famine and genocide and anything else that has been created directly as a result of the role and the policies still now being pursued by the British state, not the British ordinary people, because the state and the ordinary people are very different indeed. As Tony B. Blair proved, his collusion with George W. Bush in creating a British subservience and role in attacking the people of Iraq has nothing to do with the British people. There was no referendum. And if there was a referendum, there would be disastrous result anyway, because all referendums are done in an artificial atmosphere, more artificial than any ordinary election campaign. So the results of the referendums cannot be actually relied on. So there has to be a longer term, fact-based, totally evidence-based and truthfully exercised kind of right of a franchise or opinion or vote in order to know what the people want. But the people never wanted war. They may have said yes to the prejudice against Muslims because of the image created by the questioners, of Muslims. Questioners, the people who do the polling, the survey. So the British media or Fleet Street has been lying to the British people for decades or hundreds of years. And that needs to be totally exposed and reversed, and the media needs to be made by the people, by democracy, to be accountable to the people for what it actually continues to perpetuate under the cover of news. And there is this word, this verb, coverage, press coverage. Press coverage, the press will cover or not cover. That cover is actually on the evidence, on the basis of the evidence, on the facts of the behavior of the British press or Fleet Street is cover up. It is hiding and concealing the truth. Every single big issue, the press has been covering up. Big political issues, that is. I mean, the investigation by the Sunday Times of the distillers company that actually did the thalidomide drug that caused a lot of people to produce children who were physically disabled and disformed and all the other things that were the side effects of the thalidomide drug. So the distillers company did the crime and wrong, but it was not an investigation by the Sunday Times based on, quote, party politics or political agenda. So I'm distinguishing that. So there have been other items and issues on which both the Sunday Times and other press, Fleet Street, have done objective reporting. They cannot have anything other than objective because the circumstances are totally demanding of objectivity in the most objective sense of the term, most impartial sense of the term. But when it comes to ideology and power and party, the Fleet Street role has been totally pro-fascist, anti-democratic, and very seriously basically anti-social, and of course, for the last 100 years or so, anti the Labour Party. And the bogey of the communists died a long time ago because the Soviet Union, which was originally set up as the USSR, fizzled out. It died. And there is no really communist regime anywhere in the world that actually is in accordance with the real communist purpose and communist agenda or the manifesto. If there is, then we'll have to find the evidence and examine, and we shall look at the manifesto and the implications of the manifesto. The Fleet Street papers, meaning the Daily Mail, the Boris Graph, the Daily Express, these and the Sun, these four are the most poisonous, most right-wing, most racist organs. The others are only slightly different, but these four are very poisonous. And all of them are also anti-democratic. All of them are also against the ordinary, poor white people in the millions. And I'm saying this because the Robert Jenrick, who is the so-called housing minister, I say so-called because he's destroying the idea of public sector housing provision that is council housing, social housing. So he's destroying that, and he is trying to scrap the notion, the idea of social housing by creating a market out of the land, and the market to be used exclusively and without any accountability for profit by the profiteers and the degenerators, the builders, and so on, typified by the porn billionaire Richard Desmond over the West Ferry Road Printworks project in Tower Hamlets. So the only criticism of Robert Jenrick's blueprint for scrapping the local accountability is to be found bits in the Guardian and bits in the Daily Mirror, and in this issue of the Private Eye, which is the issue number 1529, which is dated the fortnight 28th of August to 10th of September 2020. So they're talking about housing, and I'm coming to the housing, and where they make a token kind of thing, but it is absolutely on the right topic. And this illustrates the sickness of the Daily Mail, the Daily Express, the Daily Boris Graph, and the scum. The Sun is scum because of the filth it carries in every single way, in every single day. Now, this is the item on page 16 of Private Eye, of dated 28th of August to 10th of September 2020.